To open a new department store in this day and age requires a lot of gumption. Gumption one retailing family seems to possess by the shelfful. Tracy Smith shows us who's minding the store.
It seems that New York is most beautiful at holiday time, when the city is a sparkling jewel and the bustling department stores are like old friends. Except now, some of those old friends aren't exactly bustling anymore. After more than a century, Henry Bendel is now but a memory. Barney's is circling the drain. And on Fifth Avenue, Lord & Taylor is done and dusted. But a few blocks away from those dear departed department stores, Nordstrom was throwing a party. This was in October, the day before they opened their new flagship store in New York City.
Does New York need a department store? They need a Nordstrom.
And the highlight of the morning was an appearance by some people who usually try to avoid the spotlight, the Nordstroms themselves.
Well, good morning. I'm Jamie. I'm the fun one.
Jamie Nordstrom is part of the fourth generation minding the store.
Was New York always a dream for Nordstrom?
Oh, for sure. If you're going to compete with the best, you got to be here.
If you can make it here.
I'm not going to finish that.
But they're definitely playing to win. Like all Nordstroms, the New York store carries the prettiest and the priciest, and they even put full-service bars in the shoe section.
Yeah, the bar. So what's the thought there?
Well, anything from a cup of coffee to a martini. Shoe shopping should be fun. We're going to make sure you're comfortable when you're doing it.
And the Nordstroms could probably use a drink themselves about now. Getting people to shop at department stores at all these days is an uphill task, and the Nordstroms will have their work cut out for them, says Mark Cohen of Columbia University Business School.
I put the question, does New York need another department store, to the Nordstrom brothers, and they said, no, New York doesn't need another department store, but it needs a Nordstrom.
I think that New York doesn't need another department store. I don't think the United States needs another department store, and we'll have to wait and see how this all turns out.
But you could say it's turned out pretty well so far. The Seattle-based company was founded in 1901 by a Swedish immigrant, John W. Nordstrom, and his business partner, Carl Wallen. Nordstrom quickly became a chain of go-to stores in the Northwest, the latest styles in nearly every size, and the best service through good times and bad. But by the 1970s, when then-President Bruce Nordstrom wanted to open a store in California, some financial analysts called him crazy.
I told him we're going to go down to California. He says, you're going to get your head handed to you. Down there, everybody's hip, and you're just a bunch of dumb Swedes selling to a bunch of other dumb Swedes.
He literally said you're a bunch of dumb Swedes.
He's giving me a joke, but I'll remember that to the day I die.
He proved him wrong. The company's California stores are among the most profitable. It's worth mentioning that, like most Nordstrom leaders, Bruce Nordstrom had started out as a shoe salesman, or, as they say down on the floor, a shoe dog.
You know, you still call yourself a shoe dog?
I am a shoe dog.
The same was true of his oldest son, Blake, who went on to lead the company himself, and his two other boys, Pete and Eric, who are the current Nordstrom co-presidents.
And there was no skipping that step.
There was no skipping that step.
There weren't a lot of other job offers at age 12, so we kind of took what we could get.
Is there something to being literally down on your knees at someone's foot that teaches you about service?
You must have talked to our dad, because that's the line we heard a lot growing up. And those are lessons that we've taken with us to this day.
Another lesson might be perseverance. Blake Nordstrom and his family had dreamed of a New York store for decades, but even as it was finally being built, the family was rocked by some horrific news. Just before Christmas last year, Blake announced that he'd been diagnosed with lymphoma. He was optimistic and said he planned to keep working through treatment. But on January 2nd, Blake Nordstrom unexpectedly passed away. he was 58.
How much of a hole does that leave, not having him around?
Oh, it left a big hole. I mean, if there's somebody that you love so much, you can't just dry your eye and do it. It sticks with you.
He was really good at his job. He had good instincts about the business, but I'll tell you this, as good as he was at his job, he was a better brother. He was a great brother, and we really miss him.
The Nordstrom family built a simple tribute to Blake in the New York store. His footprints, cast in bronze, forever watching over the shoe department he'd worked so hard to build.
What do you think he'd think?
He'd love it.
Well,
I don't know if he'd love the footprints thing, but he'd love the store.
he would love the store.
And now they're hoping shoppers will love the store and maybe give the Nordstrom crew a real reason to celebrate.
How do you see the future looking for Nordstrom?
I think we're going to do great. Now, we took a slump like every other department store. It's been a battle. And so now I think we've got it going. So we're not there yet, but where we're going to be, I think.